Happy Monday, everyone. Feels great to start a new week with another Instagram Live. And today I have some really great guests from a completely different part of the world. So I'm here in Stockholm. I'm Cacao Sana, and I'm going to talk to California today with chocolate makers that are known to a lot of people who are passionate about craft chocolate. As always, this will be recorded and you will be able to watch it here or on my YouTube channel, Travel with Chocolate. So if you have any questions, you can always ask them during the live, or you can drop them in the comments and I will get to them at a different time. So let's get this conversation ready. So as always when talking about chocolate, but I've actually never met makers in person before. Hi! So great.
Hello!
All my face.
Oh, thank you.
So I think a lot of people popping in, they know you and your chocolate, very known into craft chocolate. But for the and for those of you who don't
Thank you.
know,
Yeah.
I'm talking to Dustin Taylor today, all the way from Eureka, California. And here with me is Dustin Taylor, and it's you and Adam Dick
Exactly.
who
Yeah.
chocolate quite a while back. So welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here with you. Yeah. It's I was just realizing in November we're celebrating our 11th year of making chocolate. So it's,
Will you be
been quite a
do
while
a big celebration?
Well, there's not many big celebrations these days. So last year was our big 10 year, and we were gonna have this big thing, and then we're like, no, okay, 11, that's gonna be the big one, and maybe 12's the big magical
12
year
is the new 10. Maybe
big
that's
celebration.
But I remember we were
Exactly.
doing some during the fall last year. So you did right?
Yeah.
There's always new ways.
Yeah.
I remember.
Oh yeah, there's new creative ways, exactly. And if anything, it made us all, be on Instagram Live and Zoom and really connect with the world in a new way that we probably wouldn't have before anyway. So there's a positive out of it. There's something great.
Something positive. And in your life, music.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You were playing music in your lives.
What was that? Oh yeah, still playing music. We actually practice music here at the Chocolate Factory. We have all of our equipment set up and stuff like that. So yeah, music has really definitely kept us going.
But I haven't. Have I missed? Have you been doing lives recently as well?
No, it's like anything. You start that, and then all of a sudden the reality of how busy chocolate gets, and fortunately for I think a lot of craft chocolate makers, these last 2 years have really been big, and a lot of us have grown, and so it's been trying to make a lot happen out of a little bit of stuff. Where do I put duct tape on this machine, or add a little hose over here to make something more efficient, and we're also in the throes of trying to restore an old waterfront warehouse that's just a few blocks from us on the bay. That'll be our new chocolate factory, but it's from the 1850s, and so it's an old place, and so a lot of work's going into that, and we're in the middle of that. So you're like, chocolate and a building, and trying to juggle family life and everything else. So Instagram Live kind of took a break there.
I think anyone who business or is renovating their home or has, they know how much just one of those things, how much time that takes. So
oh yeah, that goes with it. And Adam and I are both, coming from carpentry backgrounds. We both have restored our homes, and so we're, luckily I'm at the tail end of restoring a home, but for the last 3 years been restoring a home as well. So just throw it in the pile of fun.
So that is your background. You have all this amazing carpenter experience. So I know you're technical and detailed oriented, but how did you end up with chocolate making?
Uh, it was well, Adam and I have been good friends since we both went to the university here, Humboldt State University, and graduated ironically in the same major of recreation administration. So we were both majoring in fun, and we wanted to travel the world and have fun. And but after we graduated, we got into carpentry. Both of our dads were carpenters, and it's kind of the family trade. And so we, it's a great traveling job where you can work a summer or take a summer off and stuff like that. So we were working as carpenters and building up wood shops. And but along the way, we're really good friends because we really like to know how things are made and kind of egg each other on that. So, for 1 year after Adam moved back to Humboldt, he moved in with me at my parents' house, and we took up knitting and crocheting and quilting, and then bought old sewing machines to figure out how to do it the traditional way. And so knowing how things are made and bringing on new hobbies has always kind of been a new thing. Adam's latest hobby is yo-yo, and so he's gotten way into yo-yo and making the strings for the yo-yo and every part of yo-yo. And so chocolate was just going to be another one of those, came across our laps. A good friend of ours is a cinematographer, and he knows, we like to know how stuff's made. So he showed, hey, check out this video of the Mass Brothers in Brooklyn. It's these two cool guys that are making chocolate. And so, we saw that, and you're like, what? I didn't even know, we had no clue, zero background in chocolate, didn't know it came from the bean, or, it's like so little did we know about chocolate. So saw that video, and we're just, they make everything look cool. And so there's that great video of Brooklyn and beans coming through your hands and roasting and smells and grinding and turns into chocolate, and looks so simple, with a cocoa town. You're just like, and then you just put it in there and voila, chocolate. And so you're like, what? I can do that. And so we were actually on our way to play a wedding with the band down in Santa Barbara, which is a big 12-hour drive from where we are now. And so big long drive to watch that video over and over again and research, what is this? What's, I never heard of craft chocolate or chocolate making. And through our search, quickly found John Nancy with Chocolate Alchemy, and found his website. And on our way back, ordered up 5 pounds of Madagascar beans and a little tabletop Santa grinder, and set that up in Adam's washroom and started roasting beans the next week. So it was kind of started that way, and just happened to be at that really early stage in craft chocolate where it kind of caught us by surprise, where people wanted locally, it was exciting. Nobody else makes chocolate. Oh, okay, we can do this. And as we were getting more excited about it, to like subsidize the hobby, you're like, oh, we might as well sell a couple and try this out at farmer's market. Ironically, we never sold it at farmer's market at all, just kind of ended up taking off a different direction. But so that's how we stumbled into it. And then early on, we were very influenced by the Mass Brothers and that look. And so we didn't think this would ever be a business. And so we just wrapped in the generic paper, the wallpaper, as people like to call it, and sold our few little chocolate bars. But then I forgot who the reviewer was, but there was a chocolate blog reviewer, some out of New York at that time, that found our little rinky-dink Facebook website or something. At that time, all the chocolate reviewers were looking for anything because there's so few chocolate makers. It's like, wow, someone else popped on the scene, even if it's just a small little thing. And so she wrote a review about us and how terrible our chocolate was and how we look a lot like the Mass Brothers. But that was really the greatest thing to happen to us, because you're like,
Yeah.
she reviewed us. It's taking us seriously. Like, this, somebody really wants to try this. And so it was at that moment that we're like, okay, if somebody out of our area wants to try this, let's give this a whirl. And fortunately, my brother is a fantastic artist he's worked at Pixar and on different movies, and just a very talented guy, and he owed me some favors. So he designed our mold and the new wrapper and the boat illustration, and he illustrated all of that stuff early on to really separate ourselves from the pack. And so then it was really rapidly that it went from just kind of this little hobby to the next year we're at Northwest Chocolate Festival in Seattle, and really that excites anybody to be amongst peers and other chocolate makers, feel like, well, this is bigger than this few little websites I see, and people are excited about it. And so, yeah, here we are, 11
Yeah,
years later, still
that's
at
such
it.
an amazing story. I love how it can go from a hobby and so rapidly expand to something that everyone, well, a lot of people enjoy.
Yeah, and fortunately for with our background in carpentry and as we were carpenters, we really kind of leaned in towards finished carpentry and the fine craft of carpentry and building up wood shops. And while we were building up wood shops, we learned from some great carpenters of how to source old vintage equipment is better, more robust, stronger than a lot of this new equipment. And so for years of being carpenters, we were searching on different on eBay and Craigslist and stuff to find old rusty pieces of equipment and then restore it. So Adam has a table saw from 1908 and a joiner from 1912, and then we have a big bandsaw from the 1950s and big industrial equipment that we were fixing up. So then once we stumbled into chocolate, to us in our mind, it has a lot of similarities to carpentry, where you're trying to refine a raw ingredient. Either it's a board down to a table or chair, or it's a nib and the bean down to finished smooth chocolate. And so after that first Northwest Chocolate Festival, we were running a Cocoa Town. We really kind of fell in love with the kind of that vintage industrial chocolate making method. It's funny because industrial chocolate is such a bad taste and bad connotation in people's mouths, but what they do have is years and years of experience and science in processing cocoa beans and nibs and what makes it into perfect chocolate. The problem is then it became all about the bottom line, and industrial chocolate is very little chocolate in your chocolate bar, and so there's a lot of problems with that. But we were trying to take the best of industrial chocolate making, which is separating all these different steps to be a different piece of equipment, to really be able to fine tune that step of the process. And so right now we refine liquor, all the beans down to liquor in one process, and then we separate that process to refine the sugar in the liquor in a different process. And so each step has really been torn apart to be able to efficiently process each of those steps of chocolate and be able to control it in a much better manner. And so that's what it really, as two carpenters who loved old equipment and fixing it up, is that side of chocolate really resonated for us. And so we're still in love with that side of chocolate making, and we're still restoring old pieces of equipment. We bought an old Universal from Art Pollard of Amano and just got that up and running, and old stuff like that. Another roaster from 1912 that we fixed up, and so just love that.
I just get happy listening. You really hear your passion about every detail, and I think it's such an important point that the history of industrial chocolate, like we can always do something, and we can all take the positive thing away as well.
Mm-hmm.
If there wouldn't have been a change where the industry was starting to make chocolate, we probably wouldn't be there either, because that's what made chocolate accessible to everyone, just the nobles, even though now we want to bring it back to craft. And exactly. How would you define craft? What is the distinguishing things between industrial chocolate and craft chocolate?
Well, something that Adam and I always feel deeply about craft is that there's a crafts person behind that has intention in making chocolate. And so for us, we're very involved in chocolate baking process. Even though it's 11 years later, and as we grow, there's other roles we probably should be doing, we're still very involved in the chocolate making process. So even though we have another employee now that's well trained in roasting, has really become a craftsman of roasting, Adam is still very involved in tasting and making sure that's still at our level, and checking in on the other guys running the roll mill. And so we really feel like craft chocolate is bringing in the best of that craftsmanship, being really aware of each of the processes. What am I doing? What am I putting into the chocolate? And for a lot of craft chocolate, that is in the ingredients. Is really a big part of our craft chocolate. how do I simplify the ingredients or use the greatest ingredients to really highlight this product? And so, be it craft, microbreweries or craft whiskey or any of these craft foods, I think what you're seeing is a very transparent ingredient list. I'm using the best ingredients, the simplest ingredients to really make this product, really trying to highlight it the best it could be. And so us as craftsmen, we're making a fine chocolate bar, but as a single origin chocolate maker, you're really trying to highlight what's already been done on the farm, what the farmers are doing. And so we're trying to show off their work and not blow it on our end. We could get some of the greatest beans in the world and destroy them on our end by making just some terrible chocolate, and it's worthless. And so we're trying to craft a fine chocolate bar of simple ingredients that we are really aware of and are really intentional in making that product. And
people are that. Definitely. We've seen that in the comments. People are really liking your bars, getting love and if people have questions, please feel free to ask. We're getting a comment now from Project Chocolat. Craft chocolate is having your hands involved in every step of the making process. And someone else is saying that craft is a mind. Seems like people are agreeing with the purpose of the person behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love that you bring up the farmers. So every way that everyone is equally involved in the end flavor of the chocolate.
Oh yeah, and especially the farmers. I mean, it's unfortunate on our end that it's so, I think it's an education thing. People don't know, and so far away. Chocolate comes from a bean, but it's amazing. Without great cacao, you can't make great chocolate. And so, so much is riding on them, and so much work happens before it even ends up on our door. That to think that just because we're finishing off on our end, we're just making it smooth and adding some roast profile to it. But really, what the farmers are doing is incredible, and it's a big part of the chocolate making. So, which is exciting as this industry grows. It feels like more attention is happening that way, and so that's where we're hoping to shine more lights on the farmers. Unfortunately, with growing a business and being so involved and restoring homes and restoring houses or chocolate factories, it's hard to travel as much as we'd like to be able to go visit and be more involved on that side. But fortunately, with phones and the internet, we can be in touch in other ways. But we're really proud of the work.
How have you sourced your cacao? How have you found the cacao that you want to work with?
Oh, it's changed as we've grown. Early on we started with Madagascar, Bertilac since Madagascar, because, as an early chocolate maker, you need a benchmark to be able to taste upon. I need to taste my chocolate bar compared to Mono, or taste my chocolate bar compared to Rogue, or some of these legends of chocolate making that, you're like, that's what I strive to be. So how do I get, fortunately, being like Madagascar, most everybody makes a Madagascar bar. So that was a great starting point of like, mine's not there. Why isn't mine there? And what's wrong with my Madagascar to switch it up like this? And so that's how we started with Madagascar, and we still have Madagascar just because it's such a great bean. It's consistent. It's easy to come by. It's been able to grow as we grow. So that's kind of been there. Maya Mountain was early on with the Belize. We've been with them for quite a while now, since the early days. As far as new origins come on, now that you've been at the game long enough, a lot of farms, will get sample requests all the time. Like, can I send you a sample? Can I send you a sample? So we get a lot of samples sent here. Adam's taken the quality control course, with but anyways, he's taken that a couple times and really has fine-tuned how to quality assess cacao. And he was a judge down in Solomon Islands a couple times on judging cacao. So he's really the nose and the mouth and the palate for when things come in. And it's amazing how many samples. It's unfortunate, but you can kind of tell from that first smell test that you're passing on that one. So, people are learning, but there's still a lot of unfermented or poorly fermented cacao that comes across our doorstep, and so a lot of that stuff passes through. But But if we find something exceptional, or we're looking for, a lot of times in our lineup, we're trying to have different flavor profiles. I don't want everything to taste like Madagascar, and I don't want everything to taste like Belize with the fruit or the floral. I want some base notes. So you're really trying to have a diverse chocolate flavor line. And so sometimes we're just kind of on the hunt for more of that fudgy, chocolatey flavor, and something that's more of a story. It's kind of like the bigger you get, you're a bigger ship to steer, so it's harder to switch new origins all the time. And so what we've kind of found is we've got some mainstays that are in the main line of stuff, but you still want to stay relevant, and you still want to play around with new cacao origins and stuff. So that's where our limited line kind of came in, where we'll bring in something that's more unique, newer to the market, harder to find.
It seems like we've lost the sound. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, phone's ringing. I just deleted that.
Yeah, that's the Instagram. That's the constant thing with when things are live. It's like there's always these little things. But now we can hear you.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I interrupted you in the middle of your.
Yeah. So So basically, when we get the different samples, when we plan on, it's kind of a big process once we're going to bring something on. What do we have directed? What kind of flavor are we looking for? What's something that could enhance the line? A lot of word of mouth is in this industry. So hey, I've tried this stuff, and this is really fantastic. I heard this little great spot that's over here, and I got to visit this, and that's really great. So fortunately, craft chocolate's still a small, tight-knit community, and so a lot of times we'll come through, once we're at a festival or something, and you're chatting with people after works, and people will say, oh, I tried this, or I went to this farm, or Zorzal's doing an amazing thing, or those things come into play as well, as when you kind of get a little bit of word of mouth from other people that say that they enjoyed it or it's good. Because I think early on, another thing I didn't really think of, when you're just making chocolate, it's kind of like the end of the day, it's just flavor is all that matters. But then you realize the longer you're at chocolate making, and you realize how difficult it is to make chocolate, and the fat content and all these things come into play. Now, at least from my standpoint, because I'm more of the production manager, where Adam's bringing on more of the flavors, and he drives a lot of chocolate making. But the more you mold chocolate, and you're like, boy, this is just a thick, hard to work bean. Even though I process this bean so many times, and it's so smooth, and it's 20 microns, and the sugar's down, being a 2-ingredient chocolate, it's still thick. And so those will also be some of the determining factors of, because you might have 2 beans that taste great side by side, and they have good stories. Well, if this one's a little more forgiving in its workability, maybe has a better cocoa butter content, it's not as viscous, then those will also be some of the determining factors in bringing on, especially some of the bigger mainstay chocolates. Micro batches our micro batch and limited, those are always, sometimes you're like, oh, I'll just persevere through this and make this chocolate just because it's an exciting thing. So the beans from Solomon Islands were a fun one, where Adam was able to bring back 40 kilos of beans in his luggage. It looked like a drug deal with all this tape around it, and loved those things back. And but that was a fun, exciting, small, very limited batch. So especially on the limited front, we're always looking for new, kind of wild,
exciting. So much fun
things.
to see those things, and I think it's a very important way to the small, that's saying, to get more recognition for maybe new farmers or cooperatives who haven't really had a chance to shine yet. So to be able to do more by micro batches, and also from micro lots. So very little cacao.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Those things are all fun. And that's where, by having something in your line that's more of it's already marketed as a limited, exciting line of beans, and that's where that kind of space.
I can imagine that often people say, please bring back that one limited edition.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My favorite was Fiji, or you'll see people who
Yeah.
still have a stash of it in their closet 5 years later. Like, I'm just taking a nibble off of my Fiji bar or this, and for sure. There's definitely some fan favorites and some favorites of ours that have gone by the wayside. You're like, like I remember we had some early on Bolivia. That was some of that later time of wild fermented Bolivia. So it's rarer even yet. And so you're like, well, that's even harder to get. So those in that space. But
Is
yeah, some
there
really fun ones.
anyone in particular that people ask for most often? Like a general favorite?
I mean, Bolivia by this time was a while back, but that Fiji, people really liked Fiji. That Solomon Islands, but that was gone so quick. That
Yeah.
was just a tiny little micro lot. But yeah, especially Fiji. We have some friends, or people who used to work here, and that Fiji was one of their favorites, and so they'll still be sitting on that Fiji and be sitting on, Texas. Little picture. I'm down to the last.
I can relate to that. It's hard. Even
Yeah.
if you can get the
Yeah, no,
new like bars made with the same origin, if it's a different harvest, it's gonna taste a little bit different.
Oh, exactly. There's a lot of things that come into play. It can be a different factor, and yes, fermented slightly different, especially on a lot of those micro lots. Maybe the magic happened at that point, but the next year is slightly different. It's different when you're, in our bigger batches now. You're kind of mixing. It's still the same lot, but a lot of different ferments. A lot of beans kind of go together. A lot of different roasts make this rounder batch of chocolate, and so yeah, that can be less so in those micro lots.
So we got earlier in the comments where you can find your bar and chocolate after get them on your website stores.
Wow.
So you are mainly
Yeah.
but
you
you're
get
also
them on the website. Yeah, and then we have there's a few international distributors that are kind of getting around, boutique shops here and there. It's fun to have locals and people who are traveling text us a picture from New Zealand or over in Amsterdam, or saw your little shop in the sticks of Alaska or over here, and so it's getting out there. Craft chocolate's starting to move more and more and get in those spaces, but definitely websites the most direct, and we ship international and that kind of stuff. And then like you said, there's different distributors, different spaces. Right now we're in the throes of our holiday season, so we've got on the website is our ginger snap, which we're working with a great ginger snap baker up in Portland, Oregon, who's a friend of ours, and the milk is from our local farm just right here, Alexander Farm. So as we were talking about craft and trying to highlight ingredients, a lot of the additional really inclusions that are that's the big sellers for us, are the inclusions, the black fig and stuff like that. Pecans just from Oregon, right across the border from us, and new holiday stuff's popping out. Peppermint drinking chocolate's really blasting right now, because it's funny, drinking chocolate, it kind of goes year round, but all of a sudden that first cold spell hits and everybody's on to drinking chocolate.
Yeah, it's definitely seasonal, but people are craving. But I love that you work, that you highlight all, with your Fleur de Sel bar. Not often you can read about the chocolate bar and it actually tells us where the salt comes from.
Yes.
And
yeah, that's a big part of the trying to highlight and show and tell everybody every part of the story. It's trying to be as transparent as possible. And on the website, we'll even give deeper backstories on all the beans and how much we pay for the beans and the farms. And we're trying to lay it all out there so people are educated in their shopping.
And Chocolate Uplift in Chicago, she's getting requests for a dark salted chocolate, a dark milk salted bar. Is that?
Oh, dark milk salted bar. I can see that, the milk with some salt. Yeah, we did on our website, we did a milk chocolate with the salted fish, which we just haven't, it's just only available through our website, which I think we're sold out of right now, unfortunately. But that's a good idea. I like the salt. For me, I like the savory side of chocolate anyway, and so I'm drawn to Fleur de Sel, our brown butter with nibs and salt. We've made a bar in the past with smoked ancho chilies, and I like that side of chocolate. I'm actually not much of a sweet tooth, so the things that are like overly sweet and sugary, I'm like, it's not my jam. But so yeah, I love that Fleur de Sel. I'll put salt on anything, and the salt on milk chocolate
I think
is fantastic.
balance out the sweet. I'm like you. People always tell me like, "Oh, you work with chocolate, you must love sweet." It's like, no, I like things balanced. Sugar, like sugar brings out the flavor of whatever I'm enjoying. So I don't want it to taste like sugar. I want it to taste like chocolate, or if it's a cake, I want it to taste of cake. No. So I can relate. For sure.
Yeah. It's funny with Adam and I are a good balance because Adam, on the other hand, has the biggest sweet tooth ever, and he just loves junk candy and just give me candy. And so he's great. A lot of people think of us as like crap chocolate. You never eat a Snickers or this. You're like, give me candy.
But sometimes it's nice. Like people tend to think we're also posh and that we only like. We need to bring it down to a level where people understand what we're talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not a highbrow thing. We're just trying to offer a really great product, but there's other great things out there and great candies and sweets.
No,
And, it's not
just
this
a matter
highbrow
of
posh thing.
know where ingredients. That per se is not being posh. That's one thing. Like you were saying in the beginning, you want to know how things are made, where they're from, that kind of thing. Yeah. So your bars are also available. It was you're back. Your bars are also your bars are also available in Sweden now, which is given the question before where to find your chocolate, and it's available through the Chocolate Corporation, and they have your Belize and your Fleur de Sel bar. So if you would like to dive in a little bit more on those two bars specifically, if I didn't lose you. Oh, see, wait. We've got a hiccup with the connection, but I'm sure he'll be right back after we fix that. And then I will get to your second question, Valerie. And anyone else, if you have a question, now is a great time to pump them in. I keep an eye out on the comments the whole time so that we can get back to the questions the moment that Dustin is back with us again. So how many chocolate processing machines? Yes, their machinery is really, really fascinating. For those of you who's been watching my lives before, there's such a difference in if there's a one-man show or if it's a team with many machines. So we're gonna ask that question now that he's back with us. So it's loading. Hi again. Don't worry.
I'm back. Sorry.
This is being live.
Internet fluctuates here.
Have no challenge.
Yeah, so I think where we left, we were talking about Belize and Fleur de Sel that were available in Sweden, which is fun because I spent a couple summers over there in Sweden and Norway, and so yeah, I'm very fond of Sweden. I was up in Uppsala and Leksand.
I'm in Stockholm now. You have to get good tasting.
Oh yeah, no, I've still got some great friends over there who it's been a while. I've got to play in with friend's wedding over there, and then I've
come over.
So I need to make it back over there.
Next over here.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
But yeah, the Belize and Fleur de Sel, these are two of our top sellers in our, in our inclusion line. It's kind of like Black Fig, Brown Butter, and Fleur de Sel keep wrestling for who's going to be the top seller each year, and Fleur de Sel's up there again. So people are going back to just simple and salt. But this is, like we were just discussing, salt on chocolate is that fantastic pairing. That's just so simple. And this, our Fleur de Sel is actually on, we've made a house blend that we've had for a little while called our Northerner blend, which is, it's a mix of our Brazil and Madagascar. And then the salt is just Guatemalan Fleur de Sel that we get from Bittermans, and just sprinkle that. So it's super simple, just the cacao, cane sugar, and salt. And like we were saying, salt just really enhances flavor and brings out those roasty chocolate flavors. And so this is kind of our take on that. And yeah, and it's our best seller right now in that space. And then Belize is from Maya Mountain Cacao. Like I was saying earlier, it's one of our earlier origins that we've had for a long time, and we just love working with them. It's been great to grow with them and see how well it's been working out for them in that space down there, that cooperative. And so this is a nice, Madagascar is a little more red berry, citrusy kind of tart flavor that comes through. We always think of the Belize more in its floral, kind of hibiscus kind of flavor range. It's a nice, smooth flavor that goes well with a lot of things. So Belize is actually the origin that we put on our chocolate coated almonds. We use it for a lot of different products in-house. It's our drinking chocolates, Belize, same origin. And so they're like our 72% Belize drinking chocolates, the same chocolate bar, or exact same chocolate, just shredded so it fits in the, so you can mix into your cup easier. So Belize on that, Belize on almonds. But so the Belize is just a great origin, and we like this guy a lot. So that's a great color. And now that it's like almost Halloween in like 2 days, orange and black go well together too for that. So you got a great combo.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
Have you that this popular part of the US or different parts of the world, or among people like different, like they go for?
I don't know. I don't think we haven't been able to like track necessarily that Fleur de Sel is more popular over in that section versus over here. Seems like a lot of times when someone's going to start with carrying craft chocolate at first, they're like, what are your top sellers, or what are the ones in that line? So usually those early ones go forth with that Fleur de Sel, Brown Butter, and Black Fig. Black Fig has been, I've been with that one. That was one of our earliest, I think in our first years when we made Black Fig. So we've been making Black Fig for a long time. But so yeah, I haven't really noticed, have you noticed any trends of like certain areas like certain bars more so than others? No, it'd probably be smart of us to know that kind of information, but no, as of now, no. It's like, get it out the door. Who wants it? Here
Maybe
comes.
you'll be thinking about like, oh wait, that one is popular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've played around before with, with those Scandinavian salty licorice. I really like that salty licorice. So we've done where we've dipped that salted licorice fish into the chocolate, and so I really like that. And licorice is one of those like some people love it, some people hate it, but I can imagine
that would be a bestseller over here for sure. It's I know some people when you treat them to these really salty licorice that's popular here in Sweden and Finland, and people just like, what is that? Because it's so, and it's like it's so bizarre. Whereas you have someone making a licorice bar in another country and people are like, but this doesn't taste enough like. So
oh, it's so different. Yeah, like you say, some of that gnarly stuff tastes like the bottom of the seed. So you're like, that doesn't taste like the sweet, sugary.
Sometimes it's
licorice
like you
that
put
we're used to over here.
An explosion of salt, and like the same reaction people get like the lemon, but with salt licorice.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure if everyone love that kind of chocolate, but Yeah,
Not everyone,
and
but some
the
people would.
listeners here in Sweden, a lot of them would for.
Oh,
And I
good.
also have questions sent to me beforehand that people. I got a question from a fellow chocolate
Yeah.
who was wondering about and what so both what and then if there's a difference, you notice a difference between different white sugars. So cane sugar versus beet sugar.
Yeah, we have not played with other sugars. We just, right off the bat, we're looking for an organic cane sugar. We were just kind of keeping with a very traditional method of making chocolate. Someday, perhaps we'll play with some other ones, but we just haven't had the time or space to, do that. Kind of have our, just like kind of different. Right now we're just using milk in our milk chocolate, where a lot of oat milk or all these other different kind of alternatives are out there as well. So in the same space with sugar, we've just found great organic cane sugar, and so you're like, this is good. It takes one of the variables out of, you're like, this goes great with all these different chocolates, and so once I'm like, okay, chocolate, and then what sugar goes with it, and all this kind of different space, that kind of plays differently. But there are a lot of great chocolate makers out there that are playing with different sugars, and I think that's what's really neat in craft chocolate right now. And I don't want to be everything to everybody, because there's somebody else that's doing that, and so that's what's neat, is people can kind of carve out their own niche in this market. And I only do vegan, or I do this, or I add these kind of twists to that. So even though we haven't played with it, there's some other great makers out there that have
You
made
have
some
to find
fantastic
your thing.
chocolates out of it.
It makes sense to one like, okay, we understand
Exactly.
this card, and then we can play with these other variables. Like, but that you told us before.
Yeah.
Very likely. And then we have a question about your letterpress. If you ever use wood type for your letterpress, and then first, you have to tell the rest of the world what is a letterpress.
Oh, the letterpress. Yeah. So, well, a letterpress is how things used to be printed back in the day, but we bought early on when we were starting making chocolate, and we were trying to come up with what's our identity, what's our packaging, what separates us, and we were really drawn to because the chocolate's so simple in its ingredients. We're trying to have a very simple, stark chocolate. Then what sort of packaging that reflects that? And so we were drawn to black and white. That's how we kind of ended up on this matte finish. What was out in the market was glossy and gold and shiny, and so we ended up with a matte finish, textured paper, white and black, just trying to be really simple. I was inspired early on with chocolate with some Russian chocolate I actually had in San Francisco. That was the whole front of the chocolate bar was just a picture of a teddy bear or a kid's face, and the title was so small, and so that was, I'm like, I love that. It's this art based. See this image. There's the title, but it's not just all these words and all these titles kind of blowing you out of the water. And so we had this image of what we wanted to achieve, and I remember first saying we got the artwork and we sent it off to a printer, and just kind of fell flat. It was kind of, the print quality would end up glossy. So, and we wanted to change origins a lot and change things, so it's difficult. And so we had a friend who was a letterpress printer, so we already kind of knew about letterpress. But then in our search of hunting for old equipment, finding Craigslist, there was a gentleman down in San Francisco who had a print shop that was for sale on Craigslist for like $1,500. Just come get it all. It's heavy iron and the equipment. So we didn't have, neither Adam or I have a big truck, and so we borrowed someone's big old, rusty truck and a big trailer, and we drove down at 2 a.m. to do a one-day trip. And we met at this guy's garage where he had, letterpress equipment for printing is so heavy, and cast iron, and all the type is lead, and it's in drawers, and so it's thousands of pounds of equipment. And so we ended up at this guy's great little garage where he had run a little newspaper out of it for years, and then he retired and gave up on it, so he was selling that off. And so we showed up, suckered a friend from San Francisco to help us, and we used, we didn't have any lifts or anything, so we kind of used jacks to use rollers and pipes to then get it, and use a come along to get it onto the trailer and lift things and get all the stuff onto the trailer. It was about 12,000 pounds of equipment, and we bought it. It came with a linotype, which is a way of actually making your own lead type with a, you have a keyboard, and it would, with hot molten lead, make each of the types so you could write your own. And then it came with all these cabinets of lead type and an old letterpress from the 1930s, and it was all old and funky, and an offset press. Brought it all back up here, and then we restored all that and started printing our own. Learned, and that kind of goes along with kind of how we got into chocolate. You're like, well, chocolate was fun, but now letterpress is fun, and this other, another hobby is fun. That's kind of the beauty of chocolate, is there's a lot of things that go to it. That's another fun, hobby or something to get into. And so we restored an old offset press, and so we were buying blank paper and printing the boat first on that offset press, and then taking that to our letterpress and letterpressing 2 up at a time on flat paper, and then cutting that and folding that. And so we're using polymer plates at that time. We still use polymer plates where you can send in an artwork and they can turn that into a plate. And so the way letterpress works is there's a plate that has the reverse or letters or whatever you have on that space, and then there's inking rollers that go up, and they roll up on ink, and it goes across your artwork, and then with, I don't know the exact number, but it's a lot of pounds of pressure, smushes that then inked thing onto your paper and actually embosses the paper, and then comes back out, and then the rollers go back, ink up, and go back over here while big flywheel's turning around. And you're trying not to get your fingers, you're hand loading each piece of paper in there into these little stops. So you hand load a piece of paper, get your finger out, and slam, hand load, slam. And when you get it cruising, because it has an electric motor on this thing, you get spinning. I could run 2,000 impressions an hour, so it's like kapow, 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 kapow. It's like you listen to a lot of disco music, and you get that beat going, and you just slam, slam, pop, slam, pop, slam, pop, slam, pop, and so that's how we were letterpressing first flat paper. Then we have the envelopes made where the black part is all printed of the envelope, but this top part is all blank when we get it. So even today, that comes blank like that, a bunch of generic envelopes. And then so then there's a polymer plate that is like this. We used to, in the early days, have the polymer plate that said, Dick Taylor craft chocolate, but then we hand set the lead type that was down here. That'd be like Belize, Toledo, or Brazil. And so we hand set that in lead type. We never use wood type. Wood type's harder to come by in smaller different shapes and stuff like that. As we grew, now we're still hand printing, but a lot of them. So now this was all out of my parents' garage that we were letterpressing. We take it all over to my parents' garage and print. And then as business grew and I needed to be here more often, we had that same friend that letterpressed early on. She was wanting to print more, and so she would help out and print in my parents' garage. And then she ended up growing into her business to where now that's moved. She rented this beautiful space down in our downtown district, and now has this beautiful print shop and stationery shop, and she hand carves her own stationery. So that's helped be the catalyst to kind of get her into start, really helping her business blossom. And so now she prints them, and now she has hired her first employee to help her print. And so, because it's a lot of work, and you have to be married to that machine as you're hand feeding each of those envelopes at a time. So it's a lot of work, but luckily her shop's only about 3 blocks from us. So on sunny days, I'll just walk them up there, or, I'm fixing up a tricycle delivery bike, so soon I'll ride them up there, and then she'll print them, and then we'll ride them back down here, and keep going that way. But yeah, letterpress is still a part of our thing. I think, a lot of questions you get as you grow, and you're a craft chocolate company, but a lot of people think it's kind of like your image online is bigger than you really are. It's like people see you and they're like, oh, they're so industrial, or they're so big, or they're everywhere, and you're like, if only you saw under the hood, you'd see how small it is. But as you do grow, things are like, eventually I can't letterpress every bar. That becomes at some point that there's certain things as your process grows that you're like, I'm married to this here, but how do I how do I, a hand can only move so fast and it's hard to find printers. So you're already like thinking kind of down the road. So I think, we'll stay married to letterpress, especially for all of our limiteds and all of our seasonals, for our ginger snap bars. These are printed in 2 passes of the letterpress to get 2 colors. First they print the yellow, then they print the red, orange bourbon, same thing. So all of those will stay letterpressed. And then sometimes, I'm already thinking like Fleur to sell, or some of our mainstay bars are so great. I could print it, still emboss it, still make it look nice, but it might not be letterpressed, even though it'll mimic it. But those are those kind of, as you're getting that tipping point, like, oh, there's only so many hours in a day. How do I alleviate some of this work? That's where I think letterpress will be. But letterpress will always be a big part of our brand and part of our story. And even now, if there's an emergency or she can't print, I'll hop over there and be able to print something up myself and get it going. So it's really nice to have a method where, as we all know today, where you order something, it might not be here for a year, and so you're like, how am I going to make that now? So it's nice to keep that letterpress around
local.
there.
It's craft. Talked about coming from the beginning, continuing through your whole business. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's local, it's craft, and it's unmistakable, especially, and that's where I feel like, especially on the more, they're like 2 color stuff. It's like each one is slightly different, and the ink peeled off different, and it's like, it's not perfect, and that's what's so wonderful about it. And so that's where I think we'll always keep with that letterpress vibe on this stuff, where really you're just like, oh, it's textural, you can touch it and you can feel it, and the colors are different. There's a simplicity about it that we really like, and hopefully really reflects the brand as a whole of what we're part of.
For sure. It's so interesting. You have so many amazing stories. And now we get to give an advice. We got a question here that's visible now on the screen. Best financial advice for small craft. And in this case, referring to really small, so under 10 sacks a year. So where you started 11 years ago.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, we've definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I feel like one of our, and I know not everybody has the skills, or everybody's got the skills. They just don't have the time to, find cheap things and fix them up or give them a little tweak or something like that. But that's really, I feel like, a big part of what we attribute to where we are now is that we never really bought brand new equipment. It's kind of, we were like, what am I trying to achieve here? Is it a melter? What else could do that job? Or could this do that on a cheaper fix? And I feel like a lot of craft chocolate makers are just wired this way. You go to a lot of these things, a lot of people made their own winnower, or they made their own roaster, and they, with a hair clip over here, they hooked something up and came up with this great idea. So I think it's that ingenuity that's really fun in craft chocolate, and a lot of people are already wired this way. But that, I'd say it'd be tricky if day one we're like, oh yeah, somebody liked my chocolate bar, so I'm just gonna get a ton of debt and build a chocolate factory. I don't know, would that, maybe we would have been bigger by now. I don't know what, but we've had more of a slow, steady kind of growth model of make it happen, work. For the first 2 years of our craft chocolate thing, we were still both working full time as carpenters, and then chocolate on Saturdays and Sundays and nights and weekends. And it was, just work hard to make that to where it kind of becomes viable. The other thing that is hard, it's a hard hurdle as a small business, but it's so valuable, is hiring somebody. I know a lot of people just make chocolate themselves, and you're just spent, and you need somebody to be able to help you out with even those small amounts of stuff, to be able to then focus on the business. There's so much more to that of invoicing and collecting money and checking on this and checking on that. And so in those early days, I remember crossing that hurdle of getting an employee and being like, we can't afford it. We're not even paying ourselves. You know, how can I pay an employee? But that just opened up so many more hours and so many more opportunities to be able to do something. So that is also kind of an aha moment of like, oh yeah, we probably should have done this earlier, but
Yeah, well,
it really
that's great
helped.
advice. I, lots of chocolate makers are starting. All of these are really helpful for them to hear. And we're end for this evening, but I just have to read this comment because it so many things that I think of is that I can't stand to throw the envelopes away. They're too beautiful. I repurchase bookmarks and note marks, and I think that says so much about the whole craft scene. And again, to find ways to reuse it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, we'll get. We have some other customers who will say that same thing, or they'll, they cut off the fronts and turn them into postcards and send them to friends, and
I had that
kind of stuff. So
with the Canadian Chocoholic. We were talking about craft, and a lot of that was how can you reuse the beautiful chocolate bar wrappers. So postcards, or these ones are envelopes. You can like send a letter in that. Like you can. There's so many things.
Oh, exactly, and that's the same even on my end as the chocolate producer. Every once in a while, inevitably, you're gonna have leftover labels, or you're gonna have leftover envelopes. It's the end of whatever bar, and you happen to have some leftovers of that envelope, and so I've been saving those for. I have a pallet of those things, but what we'll end up doing then is doing large art installments. We've done that before. We've made big sales, have all these different envelopes, or there's I'm not sure if you're aware of Anthropology, the store that's over here. There's a great with their window displays and stuff. We're always so creative with found items and stuff like that. So we'll use a few thousand labels to create this big swath of something. So we got bigger plans for in our new space. We'll have these big 30-foot ceilings, and so I look forward to hanging gigantic sailboats made out of envelopes
that sounds
and stuff like that in our new space.
Amazing. I don't want to end, but I never want to end these.
I know it's hard to. I know we're all like so starved for seeing people.
But hopefully,
so
I'll be coming on in the not so far future. I can't wait to meet you in person and to see this new warehouse.
Yeah, we're hoping for the spring. I mean, I used to make fun of Dandelion for how long their chocolate factory took, but now I'm like in their same shoes, so I have to eat my words. But yeah, it's hopefully by this spring, March, April, somewhere in there, we'll be going in there. Eventually, we'll have a big, we'll tell everybody in the world, grand opening, we're open, and so.
So you're with brand fiesta at some point.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll even be there for that time. But until then, thank you so much for joining.
Oh yeah, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, it was wonderful talking.
Absolutely lovely. And the last comment here is that your chocolate was sent to the mom in Kyoto. So your chocolate is all over the world. Thank you all for listening. Well, ask questions, and if you want to listen to the whole thing, it's all going to be up on my Instagram in a moment, and then later on YouTube. So thank you again. Thank you.
Right on. Have a wonderful evening. Yeah. Bye-bye.